I say all of this because I don't want to let these clickbait grifters whose entire business model is shit talking movies and TV shows and pretending, oh, they're woke, whatever the fuck that means. Next, we have a question from Michael Gracey. Hey, Colton, I too was disappointed with the Peacemaker finale, but I thought the season overall was another big win for DC. What is all of this I'm hearing about James Gunn getting fired because of the finale's poor reception? Okay, so we do need to talk about this clan of dumbasses that think that James Gunn and his DCU are somehow a failure and that James Gunn's days at DC are numbered, and these claims that have zero evidence to back them up. Claims that are just another pathetic attempt at the years-long vitriolic, hate-filled campaign for Gunn that these same dorks have been on since, they tried to cancel him back in 2018. A move, by the way, that ultimately backfired because not only did Disney and Marvel bring Gunn back when they realized how idiotic it was to ever have fired him in the first place, but it's ultimately what set us on the path to finally getting rid of that awful DCEU and the slop that Snyder and Joss Whedon and Zachary Levi and The Rock were giving us with all the, oh, we're changing the power structure of the DC, all this horse shit. And now instead we have the super successful and beloved DCU that really has yet to put out a bad piece of product. Granted, it's still early. They could totally screw the pooch on something that's perfectly within the realm of possibility. Nothing's perfect. I didn't care for well, the Peacemaker season 2 finale wasn't what I was expecting, but still the season overall I think was great. Anyway, these recent claims though about the Peacemaker season 2 finale and the fact that it wasn't just absolutely beloved and that's somehow spelling doom and an end of the DCU, that is the most idiotic thing I've heard in this week. I was going to say in a while, but most idiotic thing I've heard today. But guys, a meh finale doesn't take away the fact that Peacemaker season 2 was great. It doesn't take away the fact that it was beloved by fans and critics. And there's the Superman of it all. Now, I know these dorks who can't seem to do basic math think that Superman lost money. Listen to me. Even if even if Superman wasn't profitable for the studio, which it was, but even if the film itself didn't turn a profit, it was still a win because it cleansed the palate of the general audience when it came to DC movies. Oh wow, DC can make good movies that don't have Batman in the title. And again, I say this as a guy who I like The Flash. I like the Aquaman movies. I loved Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman. But the DCEU, it just was not working. And James Gunn, and because these same dorks tried to cancel him in 2018, and what they ultimately ended up doing was setting him on the path to become the big boss at DC. Now, did Superman make all the money in the world? No, of course not. But in total, it made about $615 million at the worldwide box office. That's about 55 million short of what the last solo Superman movie, Man of Steel, made, which, by the way, I love Man of Steel, but we have to remember when Man of Steel came out if we're going to compare the two. Man of Steel came out at a time when comic book movies were thriving. The Avengers had just changed everything a year prior, and people were hungry for more. It also came out at a very different time for the movie theater industry. Movies were just making more money then. And DC, they were also in a good place at that time with Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, having just, come out like what it had just finished like a year or two prior, right? And their brand was very respected and admired by audiences. And Man of Steel was just in a great position for success. But then Batman v Superman and all the other DCEU slop ran that momentum into the ground. And general audiences just didn't give a shit about seeing DCEU movies anymore. Now, Marvel kept things going strong for a while, but the multiverse saga, it's also ushered in some years of meh for comic book films. And there really is a major difference in environment from when Man of Steel came out and when Superman 2025 came out. Man of Steel came out in the golden age of comic book films. Superman 2025 came out during the fucking depression of comic book films. And it still made just shy of what Man of Steel made. So no, Superman was not a failure. That's a data-proven fact. 83% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 90% audience score, and this is anecdotal, I admit that fully, but I have yet to meet a single person that didn't like Superman. Every single person, both hardcore fans and casual fans who go to the movies like 3 times a year, people that I talk to outside of the internet, they have all said to me that they loved the Superman movie. The only haters of the Superman movie that I have actually encountered has all been online, and they are the same people that I could have told you 3 years prior to Superman even coming out that they were going to shit talk that movie. And I'm not saying this in defense of James Gunn or in defense of DC or Warner Brothers. They're all big boys. They can handle themselves. They don't need backup from me. I am saying all of what I'm saying right now in defense of fucking truth.
Because today is a day for truth.
I say all of this because I don't want to let these clickbait grifters whose entire business model is shit talking movies and TV shows and pretending, oh, they're woke, whatever the fuck that means. These guys, they're so pathetic. They are so attention seeking. And I say that as I, sit here on the Ask Colton show. But really, they've never had an original thought in their entire lives. They are man babies who are incapable of joy because they're so miserable in their own lives. And it's honestly sad because they just behave as like the way they act is human repellent almost. No one wants anything to do with them. No one wants to hang out with these people because they are so unbearable to be around. And so, they find each other online and they sit around in their little virtual circle jerk where they make everything about, fucking their political agenda and playing the victim card at every fucking turn and crying, oh, that's woke about everything. They're idiots. And I feel bad picking on them because I'm going to be careful. There's probably something wrong with them, and that's unfortunate. So I don't want to come off as a bully, but some of these guys, man, they have no media literacy. They have nothing but hate in their hearts. And if they had any like genuine criticism of the media that they consume, they would make content that actually criticizes the movie or the show itself and actually goes into detail of what they didn't like instead of just saying, oh, well, you see, it's woke, and I don't like that because I already decided years ago before I even saw this movie that I wasn't going to like it. So to wrap up, James Gunn, he isn't going anywhere. All right, even if WB sells, which as we're going to talk about here in a second, it's definitely selling. Even if they do sell, James Gunn and the DCU, they add even more value to that sale. So to all of these dorks online that are pretending that James Gunn stays as the head of DC are numbered, they're delusional. Okay, they're moronic and they're sad. And to be super clear, you do not have to like James Gunn or his DC stuff. That is totally fine and acceptable. I am not saying that if you genuinely just didn't like that movie or Peacemaker, or if that show or movie wasn't for you, that is totally fine. But what you don't get to do is make up your own facts and pretend like it's failing and like no one liked it when that's just not the case. Just say, hey, I didn't like it. Here's reason X, Y, and Z that I thought it was total shit. But don't sit there and pretend like everybody feels that way. Don't sit there and pretend like because somebody liked it, that means that they're a paid shill or something like that. Be able to admit that other people liked it. Be able to admit the facts as you see them. Here's a great example. I like The Flash. I like it. I understand that most people don't. You will never catch me saying, everybody loves the Flash. No, of course not. Not everybody loves the Flash, and that's okay. I can like the Flash. I don't need other people to like the Flash. I like the Flash, and that's okay. And it's okay for you not to like Superman. It's okay for you not to like Peacemaker. But you don't get to then say everyone else doesn't like it, and if they do like it, they're lying. That just makes you come off stupid. All right. Our next question. Jesus. Hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in to the email address AskColtonNow@gmail.com, link in the description below. And hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show.
you're still here. It's over. Go home.